Okay, here's the honest truth about the SAT. I know that it's something that a lot of people are really stressed about, but you don't need to make it a stressful experience. So I'm gonna go over a little bit about my experience studying for the SAT, some tips that I have for students who really wanna crush the SAT, and also how to make it a little bit less stressful. So my name is Vivian. I went to Stanford and studied computer science, and I got a 1580 on the SAT. Back then it was out of 2400, but when I calculated my new score using the new test, I got a 1580. And I'm also the founder of m.acely.ai, which is an AI tool that helps high schoolers get ready for college. Right now we're focused specifically on test prep, and so I do work at a SAT prep company. I will disclose that, and so you can take this video with a grain of salt, but I really just want to help students understand why the SAT is important and also how they can do better on tests like the SAT. Some of these tips are gonna sound a little bit intense because I'm really focused on helping you get the best score that you can. For people who are looking to go to a little bit less selective colleges, you can also just spend your time studying, reading, writing, doing all of these things that you enjoy doing, and that's actually gonna help you do better on the SAT. So my main thing is that I think students should start thinking about the SAT earlier, because then it's a lot less stressful to prep for it beforehand. If you are looking for a 1600, you will have to be pretty intense because the SAT is a bit of a game, and you just have to understand how the game works in order to get that perfect score. Okay, here's my story about studying for the SAT. So I actually got a private college counselor when I was a freshman in high school, which is a super privileged thing that I was able to do. I grew up in a really competitive high school in Palo Alto, and I went to a public school, which again, public schools in my town were really great, but they had, we had about 300 graduating seniors every year and one college counselor for all of them. So they really couldn't get to know you that well. And frankly, a lot of the times they were helping out students who were at the average or below average and helping them sort of graduate from high school, and maybe not as focused on the kids who are looking to get into really selective colleges. And I actually started studying for the SAT with that counselor when I was about a sophomore in high school. I actually know other people who took the SAT when they were in middle school or freshmen because they wanted to go into really selective summer programs. I was not one of those students, but I started studying for the SAT when I was a sophomore because the philosophy that we had was that the earlier that we started, we could do a little bit each week and then sort of build up from there. And so I took one math and one reading and writing section per week for about a year. And then by that point, my average score when I took a mock test was in that 90th, 95th percentile. And so I was feeling really good going into the test, and I didn't have to cram as much. And during that time, one of the most important things that I did was that I actually just loved reading. And especially if you're already taking, honors English classes or things like that, that can really help improve your reading and writing score because you start to learn a lot of vocabulary, you start to see these grammar sentences and the ways that things are constructed, and that can really help you do better on that SAT intuitively so you don't have to memorize a bunch of things. Okay, so here's one honest truth about the SAT, which is that it's really built to trick you. It's not always about knowing all of the material, but sort of more how the questions are asked. And a common thing that I see is that a question is maybe 3 or 4 sentences long, but really there's only a few words in that sentence that actually matter for you to get the question right. And so what I always recommend is that if you're getting stressed during the test, just read through the question, and if something doesn't strike you right away, you can just skip to the next question and come back to this one. Most of the time, those really long questions, most of the information is just there to lead you off track. So I recommend taking a beat, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and then rereading the question and making sure that you eliminate all of that extra information. So I'll show an example problem here where there's a ton of information, and they give you a lot of numbers like 35% or 5,000, and there's a bunch of mixed signals that you're getting from the question. But if you read what it's actually trying to get you to do, you can write out some really simple equations that can help you get to the answer. So the main thing here is to just remember that these questions are kind of set up to overwhelm you a little bit, but as long as you take a step back, you can go ahead and crush that question. Okay, the second honest reality that I have about the SAT is that the reading and writing section is really hard to cram for. If you want to get a good score on that reading and writing section, I would recommend just reading at a higher level for a long period of time before you take the SAT, and that's gonna make things a lot more straightforward for you. So for example, when I was in high school, I took mostly honors English classes, and we would read, some of these American classics. We would read books that were written in older grammar or older English so that I could start getting used to the different sentence structures. And so other than taking those AP classes or honors English classes, you can always just read more in your spare time. I would read things like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, books or nonfiction pieces that you can learn different kinds of sentence structures from, vocabulary from, and that's actually the best way to prep for the SAT, but also for later life, because you can reuse a lot of those words in your day-to-day. Remember that a lot of the skills that you learn for the SAT should help you in your career later down the line, and they're not really just this sprint for the SAT, but it's really a marathon of learning over your lifetime. Okay, and so as I mentioned before, the reading and writing section, a lot of the times it just takes a lot of years of reading and writing, but for the math section, there are actually a lot of hacks that you can do that will help you take the SAT in a much more effective way. So one of the things I would recommend is getting a ton of practice with a Desmos calculator, because a lot of the times, if the answers are just written out as a multiple choice, you can reverse solve the question by plugging the answers back into the equation. I'll put a question here where you just see that out. The other hack that I have is learning more number sense. So this is really just around understanding the t-shirt size of a number. So for example, is 10,000 way too high, but is 1 way too low? You'll see a sample question that I have here where the order of magnitude between the answers here is really big. You have one answer that's in the hundreds and then one that's in the tens of thousands. Which one are they actually looking for? That would let you eliminate half the answer. And if you're able to eliminate 2 answers, then you could actually just guess between the remaining 2. And remember, there's no guessing penalty. So each time you have about a 25% chance of getting the right answer. So you should always guess. And if you can eliminate even 1 or 2 answers, that's gonna up your probability of getting the right answer a lot more. Okay, and another unsurprising reality about the SAT is that it really favors people who plan ahead. There are going to be people who can take the SAT on their first go and get an amazing score, and good for them. But for the majority of people, you want to plan ahead so that you're not stressed leading up to the test. And so for most people, you really want to take advantage of the fact that you can actually take the SAT multiple times. I don't usually recommend taking the SAT 3 times because that's sometimes overkill, but you can always take it once to get a better sense of the testing environment and then take it again. And you can also super score those 2 different tests that you took. So you could take the better score that you got on either section and add them up depending on the college if that lets you. And I would really recommend, if you're taking mock exams, to act like you're in the testing environment. Sit in a quiet place, take the entire test front to back, make sure that you understand that the timing is really, really critical, because skipping ahead to certain questions is gonna be better for you. Because there is no guessing penalty, you wanna make sure that you get to every question and that you have enough time to answer the harder questions, which might be at the back, or you just can triage yourself a little bit better so you can spend more time on the questions that you needed extra help with. Okay, and related to planning ahead is that the more times you can practice the mock exam, the better. And I want you to think about taking the mock exam in about half the official time that you're allowed to take the mock exam. So this sounds like a really intense tip here, but what I'm really trying to help you do is understand how the test day will feel and practice at such a level that the test day will actually feel really easy for you because you actually practice on hard mode. And if you're able to take the test in half the time, that'll give you a ton of time to go back, review your answers, make sure that you're happy with everything you did, make sure you didn't skip any questions, whatever have you, and just having that extra padding. If you don't actually know how to do a question, that's totally fine, and just skip it and come back. And at the end, if you still don't know how to do it, then just go ahead and guess. So the way that I think about this sort of halftime thing is like you would be an athlete training for the Olympics, right? If you were training in Denver or Colorado at way higher altitude, when you actually go to the Olympics, you would be in a lot better position than a lot of your competitors because you are training on hard mode. Okay, and my final reality check about the SAT is that I know that it's stressful, but you can really think about it as a way to help you set yourself up for success in the future. That is both through getting into more selective colleges if that's your goal, but also having this constrained thing that you're practicing for, that you're really putting a lot of effort into, will help prepare you for later life as well. The reality is that life doesn't get easier after high school. You'll have to set your own calendar, you'll have to set your own schedule. You won't always have a boss telling you exactly what to do. And a lot of the times in high school, your teacher is telling you what to do. But the SAT is one different thing where you can start practicing setting your own schedule, being your own boss, and understanding how long it will take you to do something like the SAT and having something to work towards. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any other questions about the SAT and what other topics you want me to cover.